The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Welcome to it Fridays here. It's Hail Varsity Radio. We're powered by Cornhead Lager. This is weird because we're all in studio together. Elijah Herbel, Connor Clark, Chris Schmidt. Hope everyone's doing well. Monster Sports Weekend. Of course, conference title games. Who gets into that Final Four for the college football playoff before you expand to 12? Husker volleyball going to go on their title quest. They've been incredible all season long. Nebraska and Creighton, as we're here for all of it. Numbers to get in, 489-1240, 489-1240, and can dial us up across the great state of Nebraska or wherever you hear us on the Hail Varsity Radio Network, 800-825-5865. You can also find us on the Hail Varsity YouTube channel, Hail Varsity Radio, Twitter feed at HVarsity Radio, and can find us on Facebook as well. Find Elijah on Twitter at Herbal Essence. Find Connor Clark on Twitter at C_Clark_27, at Schmidt_radio for me. Loaded up, we'll get some hoops thoughts times two. Jeff Smith will join us, Hall of Fame basketball coach and longtime assistant at Nebraska, dives in to this Nebraska-Creighton matchup on Sunday. Jacob Padilla in hour two. We'll hear from Fred Hoiberg as well this first hour. And Bill Doleman gets us going in hour two. Clausburn winds us down with the Friday forecast. Guys, we didn't quite have to pass the offering plate. Nebraska did the right thing. They got Tony White handled. Christmas came early and much deserved for Mr. White. Yeah, science. Nebraska's defensive coordinator getting that $600,000 bump. $1.6 million. He is tied, I believe, for second in the Big Ten when it comes to assistants. Only
behind Marcus Satterfield.
No, he is he is making more than Marcus Satterfield. It is not known whether or not he has gone shopping with Rick Heyman and the crew at Sauter Heyman. Love y'all.
Well, Terrence Knighton did hop on Twitter.
I know. That's where I'm going. Terrence Knighton said, hey, Rolexes for everybody. You want a Rolex or an Oris? You go see Rick, is what I'm saying. But point is good for pot roast saying, hey, dude, how about a watch? Running back always gets his own lineman watches. 'Tis the season for gifts. You're a bit perplexed because you're a good roommate. First, secondly, you're a good roommate who cares because you're in the midst of holiday/Christmas gift dilemma. Yeah. You actually buy your roommates gifts.
Well, let's lay it out here.
And they buy you. I mean, you've known these dudes for a long time, and it's a nice happy family that you're rooming with. That's cool. My roommates, I've talked to one. I haven't talked to any of the other two for 20 years. That's probably a me problem.
See, my roommates, both of them, they're stepbrothers. I lived with one. It'll be our...
Which one's Dale? Which one's Dragon?
Yeah. It's not like that. But one of them I have lived with, in February, it'll be 6 years, which is ridiculous.
Nice.
So I don't know how we've stayed together.
My current roommate
long.
hates me, so, you know.
Yeah, I mean, we've learned.
Which one?
Me and my roommates, it's funny. We've moved in together like right after high school, and at this point, we're an old married couple. We're like Schmidt and his wife. We just bicker all day. Sorry,
No, we ignore each other all day. We don't waste the bickering time anymore.
No, but it's at the point where I spend more time with my roommates than I do with my actual family. So I have to get them something. But then on the other hand,
keep them around.
I don't want to break the bank for my roommates because at the end of the day, you're just my roommates. I appreciate you guys, I really do. But man, you're not gonna go shell out money for me. I'm not gonna shell. You have to find that weird middle ground. It's like going to a white elephant and you don't know how much to spend. Do I bring the jumbo thing of cheese balls to the white elephant? or do I actually get something nice? Like, that dilemma.
You better get the on-brand cheese balls. They better be planters.
What kind of gifts are you bringing to a white elephant?
I get
That's
the
my
Utz.
question.
Oh, okay. That works.
The Utz, they have the big old, it's like the 5-pound bucket of cheese balls at Home Depot.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because let me tell you right now, if you're at the right white elephant.
How many cheese balls and 5-pound bucket of Utz would 1.6 million buy?
Oh, a lot.
Right?
A lot.
Did you buy the store out?
Concerning amount.
Coach White?
Something tells me if I'm making 1.6 million a year, I wouldn't be buying cheese balls. Maybe not.
If you like them, you like
Whatever
them.
floats your boat. I mean,
But I'll just the healthy advice out there to anyone who's like, I don't know what to bring to this white elephant. If you're with people with a good sense of humor.
Tito's.
No, the cheese balls. You go with the cheese balls because think about it. You wrap it up.
Tito's.
It's a 5-pound bucket of cheese balls, which is gigantic. When it's all wrapped up, everyone goes, what the hell is that? And they shake
Dude, it's
it.
$5. What?
They go
That's
shake
the
it.
limit.
They shake the thing of cheese balls, though, and then they get intrigued.
Huh.
And somebody opens it up and finds a world of disappointment inside and like, how am I going to eat all these cheese balls?
I'll help you.
Exactly. It's the perfect white elephant
Boom.
gift. I'll just lay that out there
Everybody's
right
happy.
now. But I don't want to be the guy bringing cheese balls to my roommates for Christmas whenever they're buying me actually something decent.
That'd be kind of weird.
That's been my dilemma of the day.
Tony White
Better than Matt Rule's dilemma.
will get his defensive staff, could get his defensive staff gifts that keep on giving. He's given another year plus to Nebraska. That is big. When we talk off-season moves and momentum and important moments for this football program, this build by Matt Rule, Tony White is important. We have arm wrestled all week about does he stay, does he go, does he listen, did he interview? Yes, yes, yes. And came down to Nebraska doing the right thing, and it's been earned. I mean, yeah, he had some stuff to work with, which is important, but he got them to perform. He got them to step up. He got them to play winning football, and he got them to play winning football when there was no compliment. No might be a little strong, but there was little compliment by this offense, and it was the defense continuing to go out there and keep Nebraska in the game with some help occasionally by the offense, and I know the offense will get to work and try and be better, and with some good and some bad from special teams. The one phase of the game that was bulletproof was Tony White's defense. Kids love playing for him. As we work on roll call here, Dion got in first. Tuck is second. Tuck is saying, with the quarterback situation, I'm still a Chubba fan. Kid played well at Wisconsin. Give him the reins all summer, and he'll be what we need next year. I mean, that's, it's linebacker, it's wide out, it's quarterback for the intrigue / to-do list. And, we'll see where Nebraska's at. We'll see who they consider, and we'll see what the type of fit is. So, Tony's big because you got a lot coming back defensively, and it's an impressive number for him. And I love all the suggestions. 'Tis the season that he's getting from Pot Roast. But Omaha North at 9 a.m. for Tony White this morning. West Side a little bit later in the day, and him and Pot Roast are out on the trail, which is big because Nebraska needs to keep that cupboard full.
And one of the things that is important to note, and you kind of laid into this early whenever you're talking about this, not an extension for Tony White. It's been labeled as a restructuring,
Sure.
essentially just a raise. So if you think back, the original contract, 3 years in length, this keeps it at 3 years, another 2 years for Tony White, which then, again, you can make the assumption he's still gunning for a head coaching gig, and that's why I think we can assume he turned down USC. There was enough smoke there for me to think there was fire in terms of USC's interest in Tony White.
It's USC calling him, hey, Tony, want to come to the West Coast? Lincoln, flattered, thank you, no.
Well, and this kind of confirms what we're thinking. By not giving an extension, just a restructuring, it's a raise saying, hey, we want to keep you around up until you get your head coaching gig. And I don't think anyone in Nebraska that watched the defense this year, or Tony White or Matt Rule, thinks that it's going to take more than another 2 seasons for Tony White to get a good head coaching opportunity should he continue to keep it up, which I think with the returning talent and what we know about Tony White, we can expect. So important to note here that I think this is a move that is just Tony White saying, I think this is my best bet at getting myself a Power 5 head coaching gig at somewhere down the road. Like, was it yesterday we brought up the example of Brent Venables on the show, where Brent Venables, I mean, he was an elite defensive coordinator for years and years, and it took him a long time to find the right opportunity. And Oklahoma came back around to Brent
He was
Venables.
making so much. He was your first $1 million defensive
Exactly.
coordinator.
And this is what I'm saying with Tony White. We're like
comfortable, and let's just do this because I'm happy, first and foremost, but it's got to be the right move to leave.
And this is the kind of restructuring for Tony White that makes that possible for him. Hey, you're making $1 million plus. You're going to be well taken care of. The taxes aren't bad in Nebraska as much as that becomes an issue every year.
You can buy a lot of Utz cheese balls when shopping for your defensive cohorts.
Well, I mean, as much as taxes get brought up every single election season, taxes could be a hell of a lot worse in Nebraska, especially when you compare it to Los Angeles and California. So you're well taken care of here.
Wheel tax sucks, Tony. I'm sorry.
Property taxes, too. I feel that. But you look at it, you're going to be well taken care of. It's not a long-term contract. You can wait for that right opportunity to come up. A la Brent Venables at Clemson. I'm sure Brent Venables had a lot of suitors calling, trying to get his opportunity to bring him in as a head coach. He was waiting for the right chance, and Oklahoma comes calling. That's the right opportunity. It's going to be a similar story for Tony White. What's the right opportunity going to be for him? There's going to be an opportunity that comes for him at some point in time, but for now, he's going to be well taken care of in Nebraska at the meantime.
Question from Crew, and I'll clean this up for the radio audience. If you're on the stream, Hail Varsity YouTube.
Crew's been on fire at the chat.
Yeah, Crew's been pretty good. So it's been referenced. Elijah's been shopping for his roommates. His roommates are stepbrothers. And Crew is asking the question we're all wondering when we reference that movie. Which one was messing with your drum set?
Dragging something on my drum set. Luckily, I don't have a drum set. They'd probably cease to be roommates with me if I was sitting downstairs practicing the drums. I just set up my little mic, and I have to annoy them by saying, hey, you guys
I'm going to do this Bonham tribute, guys, at midnight. It's going to wail.
Well, what's more annoying, the drum set or me saying, hey, you guys need to be quiet for the next hour and 15 minutes while I record a podcast? There's pretty even. Oh, maybe they're dragging their you-know-what on my microphone at home.
I don't know. I hope not. Moving on, Brian checks in. Need a 1B or 2A quarterback for sure. Otherwise, you're riding with Chubba, if he gets injured, or he says who gets injured every 4 weeks of practice, not to speak of games, a true freshman, a guy who needs to change positions. So, listen, we'll see where Nebraska's at. A name that's out there that I think really liked Nebraska. I was talking to my buddy Jack at Michigan State, Jack Ebling, and you have Levitt, Sparty's quarterback, that is in the portal, kind of a dual threat guy. I think only saw 7 to 10 snaps against Nebraska, so that might be an option. I like Howard a lot. I don't know what his plan is. Is he a guy that will be a third-round guy in the NFL? Is he going to be a guy that goes to an Oregon or a Washington or an Auburn in the portal and get paid that way? Because he's already won a conference championship. He's won 9 games at Kansas State. He came in and did great work after Adrian got dinged. They didn't quite hit the number they wanted to this year, but they had some good wins, 8-3. So if you're Howard, you're going to a championship contender, somebody that can get into the playoff if you're staying in college. And I don't know what the outlook is for Nebraska. Yes, you've got concerns nationally by recruiting folks with Nebraska's OC. You do have some young talent that's nothing to sneeze at if you're Nebraska, but there's better situations for the win now mentality. That's why that's half the reason you transfer. One's to get paid, two's to go win, and win at a better clip than you've been at. So we're back on quarterback, but at least you're not worried about what you're doing defensively next year.
Mm-hmm. And when you're speaking of quarterback, a name that's entered, or a guy that's entered his name in the transfer portal, a guy that's really interesting to me, I have no idea if there's a Nebraska connection there, but Grayson McCall from Coastal Carolina, 1 year of eligibility left. And you look at his numbers all time in his career, I mean, his touchdown to interception ratio is insane. In 2020, it was 26 touchdowns to 3 interceptions. 2021, it's 27 touchdowns to 3 interceptions. 2022, it was 24 touchdowns to 2 interceptions. In 2023, some regression to the mean. I think he was dealing with some injuries this year. 10 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. But he's got some experience running the option, has a lot of experience taking care of the ball.
Tim Beck, quarterback.
Dual threat. It's a name that's really intriguing to me in terms of both attainability for Nebraska to go out and get. I know there's good suitors. Sounds like NC State and Auburn are both in on Grayson McCall, but that's not Ohio State.
The biggest thing to me is
Texas, the Washington.
The attainability. That is it for me, guys, is who's attainable for Nebraska. And I think Matt Rule, if he connects with not only this locker room in such short order, I think when it comes to portal, the key part's the evaluation. I don't worry about Nebraska being able to connect with a potential player and them liking Rule or liking their position coach and getting coached up. But what's an accurate projection here of what this kid can do, whoever it is? Can they come in and play ball? You don't want a miss at any spot, but specifically quarterback if you do go there. Because last year you've got that track record, didn't go well, and you got to be right if you move forward because you don't want to jeopardize some of the good you saw from Chuba to run him off.
I just look at McCall as being a guy that fits this offense really well and has done it. I know it's at a lower level at Coastal Carolina, but he's had a lot of success there. He's kind of had that RPO dual threat nature about him. He's still pass first, but he can beat you with his legs, and he strikes me as attainable. Whenever you look at Grayson McCall, you know what? You're going to get that look at a Power 5. You want that last year of college tape against some high-level defenses before you go off to the NFL. That's a name that's really, really interesting to me because I think there's some bigger names, some splashier names that bigger schools are going to want to go after. He's got the frame. He's got the production for it. You don't know what he's going to do against better competition, but it's not projecting like, oh, I think we can get the turnovers down. It's projecting in terms of, I think he can play against a high-level defense.
They want multiple years. I mean, that's ideal. Sometimes you don't get it. Alan checks in when it comes to Christmas gift suggestions for the roommate. A nice bottle of whiskey.
I did that last year, so I got to get original this year.
We'll try and answer the question, have you ever killed a longhorn steer in someone's front yard? Hail Varsity continues. Coach Jeff Smith's on the way.
And now,
back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back into it. It's Hail Varsity Radio. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, Connor Clark. The coach with us, Hall of Famer, and a longtime Nebraska assistant, Jeff Smith, with us to talk Nebraska-Creighton and some high school hoops as the season is tipped off. Coach, a long time no talk. How you doing?
Doing great. I'm glad it's basketball season here and high school included.
No, we're smiling about hoops and going to be a big one at PBA on Sunday. You're going to be there wearing all your red. I like it as you've experienced this rivalry with the number of years you worked at Nebraska. Put into words how you felt about Nebraska-Creighton and how you navigated it, because you've had kids you've coached play on both sides.
Yeah, we felt it was an extremely important game to control Omaha as far as recruiting goes, and obviously a lot of pride for in-state, just bragging rights. And, they were good back then with Hurrdat and Gallagher, and Tony Baroni was a really good coach, and it was a heated rivalry. We got after each other a little bit, and there was a little banter from sideline to sideline. It was fun. It was intense, and I just think it's a great game. And I'm hoping this year, and I think it will come down to, maybe an overtime, or I think it's going to be a close one this year. I really do, unless one of the teams just lays an egg, kind of like Creighton did last year. But I anticipate I think the spread's going to be around 2 or 3 with Creighton favored, but Nebraska at home has been really good this year so far.
And, Coach, what I think is really interesting about the matchup this year is neither team needs any added motivation. For Creighton, it's trying to get Nebraska back after last season. Last year was such a fantastic year for Creighton, one of their best in recent memory, yet they couldn't take down Nebraska. And as for Nebraska, you have that moment where you can go get a winning streak going against Creighton in their 2 most successful years that I can remember in a long time, with the Elite 8 run last year, high expectations this year. If you can get them in back-to-back seasons, that would mean so much for Fred Hoiberg in the trajectory of this Husker basketball program. So I don't think there's any added motivation that you need from either side.
Totally agree with you. I think Nebraska wants to continue to show that they are right there with Creighton's level, a top 20 team, and being in state, of course, that's motivation in itself. I heard last night there was a little clip after the Oklahoma State game in Creighton's locker room that the last thing Coach McDermott said is we're going to enjoy this until 2:00 tomorrow, then it's Nebraska time, or tomorrow afternoon, then it's Nebraska time. So they're extremely aware of what happened last year, and they do not want that to happen again.
Coach Jeff Smith is with us on Hail Varsity Radio. And, Coach, do you think that the pressure of the game this year is actually on Nebraska, or would that kind of be a false statement?
I think there's a little more pressure on Nebraska just because of their dominance in last year's game and really holding them to a low field goal percentage and holding them to 53 points. But Creighton's still the ranked team. Creighton's still the favorite to win, the Big East up there with Marquette, and Nebraska's not there yet in their conference. So I think there's pressure both ways. I still feel like there's a little more on Creighton because they're really supposed to win this game. They're supposed to be ahead of Nebraska as far as where their program's at and being that top 20 label. I just feel like there's a little more with Creighton, although there's always that home court pressure. You always feel that pressure because you're supposed to win at home when it's a 2-point difference or whatever. You're supposed to win that game. So I do think there's more with Nebraska than there was last year by far, but I don't think there's more than what Creighton's feeling.
Jeff Smith with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. Coach, a lot of years on the bench with Coach Nee and Hall of Fame coach with Lincoln Southeast. Coach, I want to ask you about the paint success. Nebraska and Walker went to town a year ago. Can that be replicated this year? New faces, but still some versatility with Nebraska's bigs.
Yeah, and that's something that I'm really going to watch early. Can Kalkbrenner guard Mast out? And Mast shoots it better, so he's going to have to get out even more. Kalkbrenner probably should have played drop coverage on Walker, and he really didn't last year. And Walker was extremely good driving with his right hand and had 22 in that game last year. I don't know if Mast can do that driving the ball like Walker did. I think he can do some. He's shown he can put it on the floor and use either hand. But Mast maybe can hit a couple threes where Walker didn't. So that's an extremely important matchup to watch early to see, one, how Kalkbrenner is going to guard him, and then two, Mast hasn't gone against a 7-1, shot blocking non-fouler that's going to, he's going to have to shoot over hands. I think this is going to be a great test for Rink Mast, but there's a lot of unknowns in your question, I think.
Well, Coach, going back to Rink Mast, too, and his ability to shoot the three, how much do you expect Fred Hoiberg to just kind of have him play more of the perimeter role this time around? Because he's talked so much about how he can bring a bigger defender out of the paint. And obviously, Ryan Kalkbrenner is one of the best defenders in the country.
Yeah, I think they're going to run a lot of 5 out. I think there's been a couple games where they've put him in and want to play through him in the post sometimes and let him go to work in there. Probably depends on whether teams are doubling or not. But I think they got to realize Kalkbrenner's not a fouler. He's not really going to get in foul trouble. That's really rare. In fact, they lead the country in fewest fouls, which I was going to ask you guys, is that a good thing or not? Are you aggressive enough if you're not fouling? And I think teams are going after them a little bit. If you're not going to foul, we're going to attack harder. But to answer your question, I think Fred's going to run a lot of 5 out and keep Kalkbrenner on the perimeter as much as possible.
Coach, a thought with the transition part of things, and Kalkbrenner is so good at protecting that rim. He'll deflect it, he'll alter it. It's an outlet, and then the Jays got the track shoes on. How do you limit the transition if you're Nebraska?
Yeah, I think Coach Linzer's done a great job with defensive transition. That's got to be one of the first things on their board. Is two things: get back and stop the ball, and then get shooters, get matched to shooters, because we know they shot 40 of them in last year's game. But I do think Creighton learned a little lesson in the Colorado State game that it's not about threes, and especially you got to realize when you got to go through your post. Last night I watched that Oklahoma State game after we did the high school game, and they went through Kalkbrenner on the low post a lot more than they had. I think they realized they need some balance. I kind of didn't like that Colorado State loss, to be honest with you, before they played Nebraska, because they looked a little different last night. Ashworth got it going and hit, I think, 4 or 5 threes, and they've been kind of waiting for him to get comfortable with that. So, I think it's going to be really interesting but those two things are just crucial for Nebraska. At least contest threes, and then you can't let Kalkbrenner run to the rim, or Frederick King, who's good also. You can't let them run to the rim runners, and get easy ones in the break, and can't let them get open threes on the break.
Yeah, Coach, whenever I think back to last season, the defensive game plan for Nebraska against Creighton, it felt like they were trying to run the Jays off the three-point line, really aggressive, closing out on shooters. And then they had the post presence of Derek Walker that was kind of camped down in the paint, trying to force Creighton into some mid-range jumpers. They obliged, and they didn't have the best day shooting from mid-range. Can that be a game plan on Sunday for Nebraska? Is that a defensive game plan that can be viable against this Jays team, or do you think Fred's going to have to switch up the game plan?
No, I think that's their philosophy overall anyway, is to run guys off the three-point line, and I think they'll continue to do that against Creighton. I think you want to make them put it on the floor. I do think Creighton's, like Trey Alexander's, really good at mid-range. He's a guy you might not really want to run off. You just want to let him shoot with a challenge. He's not a real high percentage three-point shooter compared to the other guys, but guys like Ashworth and Shireman, you definitely want to run them off and make them shoot contested twos or even open twos rather than open threes. So I would say we'll see that game plan again, and again, it kind of goes with Nebraska's overall philosophy of how they play. They're pretty consistent in how they play. I think that's one area that Creighton's maybe not quite as good, losing Nembhard and Kaluma. I don't think they're quite as quick on the perimeter. I think they have a little more trouble guarding people. Colorado State was a good example of that. I think Nebraska might be maybe without, Kalkbrenner might factor in there, but Nebraska might be a better defensive team than Creighton. And I think Nebraska's got to be careful with pace. I know they want to play pretty fast too, but I think they got to be a little careful and make sure we're playing Nebraska pace and not Creighton pace.
Coach Jeff Smith is with us on Hail Varsity Radio, and this is more of a big picture question for this Nebraska team, but ever since Juwan Gary came back from that suspension, he's been playing the best basketball of his career pretty much. Do you see Fred changing up that starting lineup and inserting him into that, or does he keep it the same because he's been so good being the first guy off the bench?
I feel eventually it's going to change. I feel eventually, but I don't know when, because like you said, it is going awfully well. Alec is providing a lot of enthusiasm and effort and rebounding and strength and experience. And right now it's going pretty well. So I don't know if you change it now, but I see sometimes where maybe Gary's in the lineup instead of Alec, and it gives you just a little more offense maybe. I felt like sitting there watching Gary since he's been back. He's different. He's a different cat as far as some of the things he can do and his athleticism with his size and his rebound ability. I think Alec's a good rebounder too, but Gary can go from the three-point line and go get it. I think he's a little different, and I think he can be a factor against the teams that are with size and strength and athleticism. And not that Josiah can't, but I just feel like Gary's a little different. I think eventually that could change the lineup. And I would have no problem with Alec coming off the bench. I think he'd be great off the bench. And really with Hita out, who's going to back up Rink anyway? Do you need to have maybe where those two are? I think Josiah to be a small, but he's small 5, but he's big and strong and just he's not long, but he's strong. So sometimes you might need those two to play that position.
Coach Jeff Smith with us. Coach, do you worry about Nebraska handling this moment?
No, I think their confidence is there. I think since they beat them last year, they know they can do it again. I don't think Nebraska feels like that was a fluke. Yeah, Creighton didn't shoot it great, but I think some of that was attributed to Nebraska's defense. I think they're ready for this moment. I think they need this moment. You know, I like our schedule. I like getting comfortable, you know, and winning those games you should. You had a neutral site game, you know, and I don't think Oregon State was very fluid when they played them, but still it was a Power 5 team. They need a road game now, and they need a top 20 game now. So they got their top 20 game, and then they'll go to K-State later on. And I think it's a perfect build to the season to gain confidence. I think they're a confident team right now. Now, could they get rattled in this game? Probably, if Creighton starts knocking everything down and you know, can play defense without fouling and, you know, contest everything with their length with Kalkbrenner. It could happen, but it would take, I think, a lot to shake Nebraska right now.
A few more minutes as Jeff Smith with us here on Hail Varsity Radio talking Nebraska-Creighton. Get a couple more thoughts from him on that. High school basketball is underway. How does he see the landscape in the state of Nebraska? We will dive into a murder down in Oklahoma State. More info on that. Hail Varsity continues, powered by Cornhead Lager.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Coach Jeff Smith with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. And Coach, before we get you out, I want to get your thoughts. Last year in this matchup, Nebraska had a guy in Derek Walker that they could turn to whenever they needed a bucket. Do they have that guy this year? Is it Casey? He's kind of coming into his own after missing some time early in the season with that ankle injury. Is he that guy? Is it Mast? Who do you think is the guy that Nebraska can turn to on Sunday whenever they need a bucket?
Yeah, I just feel like Nebraska is just balanced because Bryce Williams is playing pretty well. He's shooting over 40% from three. Casey, teams are going to pay more attention to him. It might be a little harder for him to just go off on teams. But, and then Juwan Gary came back and has shot the ball pretty good. Sam Hoiberg can make threes off the bench. C.J. Wilcher can make threes off the bench. Deron Coleman has shown that he can find guys and handle pressure. And I just think I think Rink Mast is a guy they want the ball in his hands on the block and at the top where he can run some zoom action with guys and pick and pop and pick and roll. But so I think Rink is important in that. But I think there's other guys that can step up if that's what the defense gives them. There kind of can be a team that, okay, you're not going to guard him. Well, he's going to hurt you then. So that's a hard answer without seeing him practice all the time. But I think it's probably Rink number one option, and then a plethora of guys after that, in my opinion.
Coach, to wrap high school basketball this season, as you look at some of the teams vying to be at PBA here in March, what are your impressions here? What are your preseason or early season thoughts on the landscape in Class A? Yeah,
usual suspects at the top. Bell West has their guards back. Take Dotzler out, but they still have McMorris and those guys back, and a rope as a big. So and then Millard North has Elijah Geith back, and you can go down the line and look at these top five teams. We saw Gretna last night with Pekorski and Wilcoxon. These top five teams have a lot of experience back, and they're already close to their ceiling. They're playing mid-season or late-season basketball already, whereas the Lincoln teams, with Frager at Southwest, they have a chance, but they're not close to their ceiling yet. We saw Southeast last night, not near their ceiling yet. The Lincoln teams have a lot of room for growth and improvement, and they do have a little ways to go to catch those top five teams that are kind of, Prep, Westside, Gretna, North, Bell West. But Pius has Trayson Anderson who can lead them. Like we said, Frager can make a difference with Southwest. So, yeah, it's kind of the same at the top, but we'll just see how the Lincoln schools develop through the year and see if they can close that gap a little bit and have a chance at the end.
Jeff Smith with us, longtime coach at Nebraska, Hall of Fame coach at Southeast, and partner for a lot of years doing high school play-by-play. Coach, we'll see you Sunday. Thanks for a few minutes today.
Sounds good. Thanks, fellas.
Good stuff from Jeff Smith. We're about 20 minutes away. The Pride of Fairbury, Bill Doleman, will join us. Jacob Padilla, Friday forecast. And, guys, let's dive in. We've heard of different and crazy fraternity pranks before. This may take the cake. I told you about a murder in Stillwater. Well, I don't know when this happened, but police say a dead longhorn cow found on the lawn of an Oklahoma State fraternity this morning. The day before, the Pokes take on Texas in the Big 12 championship game. Police notified at 6:30 a.m. And let's use the term lawn loosely here. The
patch of dirt out in front of their house.
The mud with a patch of grass was where the longhorn was found. You had an expletive carved into the side of the steer's stomach, was cut open. Pretty cruel. And this crime was committed right before the Big 12 championship. That from the law enforcement to the Daily Oklahoman, or the Oklahoman, excuse me. Nothing worth doing. Nothing is worth doing this kind of crap over. That's what the officer said. This is, I mean, you saw Animal House, and you saw the prank with the fake weapon to scare Niedermeyer's horse. And the horse had a heart attack, and all of a sudden, in Dean Wormer's office, a chainsaw had to come out, and they had to remove this white horse. Well, this is a giant longhorn. It's white with a little brown on it, and the video and footage is all over social media. So I pray that the steer did not suffer, first and foremost. Doesn't sound like that's the case. And two, how do you do this? How do you transport, as Tommy Lee Jones put it, that's 2,500 pounds of pissed off livestock. How do you get that to the front yard with no one saying a word? And authorities called it 6:30.
Must have been really planned out, I guess.
I mean, think of Bevo. Bevo is tranked out of his mind every home football game until
he's also huge.
I know, until last year's Big 12 championship game where Bevo got ticked off and then made a charge. This is incredible. I need to get to the bottom of this. How and who?
Here's the thing. I've been doing some thinking on the who. The how, I don't know, because
I mean, they have a flatbed truck. They're taking Bevo off.
You get a U-Haul?
It's a flatbed trailer where they threw Bevo, not the Bevo, but would be Bevo,
and
dead Bevo.
Here's my thing. Like, this sounds like a whole operation. And as Connor would know, I would know, college campuses don't sleep from Thursday night up until Sunday midday. You know, like there's always going to be somebody awake and watching. I think this was an inside job from Farmhouse. They claim they have nothing to do with it.
That's the fraternity.
The Farmhouse fraternity, yeah. They claim they have nothing to do with it. In the side of the cow was branded F Farmhouse. It had a stronger word than F. I think you know what I mean there.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just sitting here thinking, if you're going to pull this off on a Thursday night, I feel like some people within Farmhouse, that fraternity, would have to know, A. And B, if I'm trying to make everyone think this wasn't us, somebody's pulled a prank on us. Like, if I am trying to
divert attention, I call out Farmhouse.
Yeah, and if I'm trying to, like, say, make an insurance claim, let's say I'm trying to make an insurance claim on my car.
Were you guys in on this? Because it kind of sounds like it.
Well, no, here's what I would do.
You're just devious.
If I'm trying to make an insurance claim on my car, I'd vandalize it, and then on the side, I would write F Hail Varsity Radio. Because why would I ever do that to my own car? Clearly, this is somebody who's got a problem with Hail Varsity Radio. I'm going to take it to insurance. I'm going to take it to the police.
And if there is
I'm the last suspect.
Vandalism Saturday morning on Elijah's ride.
You know exactly who it was. It was me. But, like, that kind of seems like if I'm a college student trying to get away with something, I might just, brand that into the side of the cow so nobody thinks it was
somebody
me.
Who doesn't like us that did this. There might be a rival fraternity doing this prank. Maybe it's a Texas fraternity.
Maybe. I don't know.
But Brian checks in. Kids in an ag college are resourceful, especially cowboys. Where was Rip from Yellowstone? Did he have a hand in this? I'm kidding. But, man, Brennan... Fun fact, I'm a Farmhouse alum.
Brandon, we need to get you to the bottom of this. Work your
Brennan,
Farmhouse connections.
How did you pull this? How would you pull this off, Brennan? Brennan in the Black Hills. I'd be very interested to know. I mean, you whack Bevo, so he's out of his misery. Then you carve him up. Then you transport him. Then you dump him in, again, a front yard of a Farmhouse fraternity.
Hey, who's to say Oklahoma people didn't do this? To try and set up Okie State?
That's possible. I'll say to close the segment, I just hope that all this meat goes to a good cause.
Exactly. Well, we'll get Bill Doleman's thoughts. Tony White got paid, Nebraska-Creighton. More to come. Hour 1 winding down.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time this hour, we will get to fraternity prank hijinks theories with one Bill Doleman. Rush Chairman, damn glad to meet you in about 10 minutes. Thoughts on Tony White, Nebraska's quarterback situation, all to come in hour 2. We're powered by Cornhead Lager. And reminder to buckle up this holiday season or any season. Use your seatbelt. It saves lives. It prevents injuries only if properly worn. Make it click, a message from the NDOT, Highway Safety Office. So we have more comments and theories coming in. Resetting Oklahoma State fraternity, Farmhouse fraternity, a dead longhorn found in the front yard 24 hours before kickoff for the Big 12 championship game. We don't want to accuse anyone. Walter says horns down forever. Many Nebraskans shaking their head.
Was Walter involved in this?
No, Walter's in Philadelphia.
As far as we know.
I'm not going to.
Sounds like the perfect alibi.
So, Brian has some insight here, as in when it comes to live, full, cooperating sides of beef. We only ran a live heifer through the dormitory. This is Brian chiming in. She had her halter break, which helped for the retrieval. No animals were harmed in the process. In the episode of, and I forget what season of Yellowstone, they get back at some cowboys who tuned up some of the ranch hands, and they brought a live bull into said bar. So that was interesting. They just loaded it up and backed the truck in to the entrance of the bar, and away you went. But Bevo Jr. here was whacked, branded, cut open, and left for dead at 6:30 a.m. this morning. Danny asked, did the fraternity make steaks last night?
That's what I was saying at the end of the segment. Like, I hope this meat, like, maybe goes to a food bank in Stillwater or something like that. I just want the meat to go to a good cause. That's the biggest thing to me is, like, hey, people are upset. They're like, oh, this is so cruel to the cow. Well, you know what? This Longhorn's likely journey probably was anyway. It was probably going to become steaks at some point in time anyway. I just hope that they put it down in a humane way, and I hope the meat goes to a good cause. I hope it doesn't go to waste, because that's a lot of meat that could do some good for the community.
Yeah, if you made this animal suffer...
you are the worst of the worst.
You are. You need to be set on fire.
But there is a reality in this world that likely, in an ag state such as Oklahoma, with an ag fraternity such as Farmhouse, that this cow was likely destined for the slaughterhouse.
Sure, it was going to be on someone's plate at some point.
Yes, and that's what I'm saying here. I just hope the meat doesn't go to waste, and it was not an inhumane death. If those two boxes are checked off, the meat goes to a good cause, and the cow was put down in a humane way, I have no problem with this prank whatsoever, actually. I think it's actually pretty good whenever you're playing Texas in the Big 12 championship game. And you know what? Whether it was Farmhouse kids that did it and they're trying to divert blame, or another house on campus, I actually think this story is quite funny.
What you don't want is a amped-up Bevo in said fraternity's front yard a week from yesterday after the Big 12 championship redecorating.
Pissed off bull coming through.
No bueno.
So we'll get Bill's take on this. We may even grill him on fraternity pranks.
Grill, pun intended?
Well, didn't mean to there. But we may dive into mid-'80s Nebraska. The two legendary stories about Nebraska fraternity interactions, the infamous early 90s snowball fight where police were called and streets were closed. And this might have been 91 or 92. That's the extent. I didn't participate. I was still in junior high, I promise. All right, hour two coming up. Hail Varsity continues, powered by Cornhead Lager.
He's the pride of Fairbury, an average Joe. Bill Doleman, the professor.
I had a 6 ACT in 1967. One time I got an A and my grandma beat me for cheating.
Now with Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you, it's hour two. It's Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Cornhead Lager. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, Connor Clark. Pride of Fairbury, NBC Sports. The professor, Bill Doleman, can watch the show, can check out this segment streaming the Hail Varsity YouTube channel. And, of course, Hail Varsity Radio, Twitter at HVarsity Radio. Our friends at Husker Game Day tweeting out a question for all of us to ponder for the Big Ten championship game. Who are you rooting for tomorrow? 3 choices. One is Michigan. The other is Iowa. The third choice, a giant asteroid. So chaos may be it. Bill Doleman.
Personally, can I just say, I've seen the effects of a giant asteroid had on the dinosaurs years ago.
They were smoking. It wasn't an asteroid.
Right.
I don't know.
You didn't see the poster as a kid?
Oh no, I did.
That's why
I think fake news.
The real reason dinosaurs are extinct is because they fired up too many Pall Malls.
I trust science, and I trust the fact that a giant asteroid hit somewhere in the Gulf of Mexico, and that led to the extinction of the dinosaurs. You know what? If that's the risk we're running, like, I'd rather have Michigan win a football game than go extinct.
Then go goodbye. Bill, I want to get your take here. You were Rush chairman, and glad to meet you. And I want your unfettered reaction to the fact there's a dead bevo, or was a dead bevo, on the lawn of an Oklahoma State fraternity farmhouse lawn at 6:30 this morning. Does that rank on a top 1% of prank wow, or is it a 99 percentile in bad taste? Is that going too far?
Yeah, it's too. This is too far. I mean, look,
you're like, yeah, it might be a little too far.
Look, I've seen a lot of things. I've heard of things that were done. Never, of course, did I partake in anything during my fraternity days, that would be untoward. I mean, no. And I lived next to the Fidel house, for Pete's sakes, as I.
So you saw farm animals.
But this is messed up. No, however, whatever happened, fraternity pranks are one thing, but this is a bit much. And I hope whoever gets caught with this gets busted pretty hardcore. I was thinking about this when you sent I read the story, then you sent the video. Thanks for nothing.
Well, I mean, it's documentation of a dead bevo on someone's air quote lawn.
Okay, but to marry that with one of the other big stories of the weekend, and that's Nebraska and Creighton. Okay, when I was doing games for ESPN and the Big 12, one of the people that I got to work with several times for a couple of years when he was in television was former Creighton head coach Tony Baroni.
Right.
And Tony had a cantankerous personality toward the media, shall we say. And a lot of people didn't really want to work with him because they were afraid that, he might have the same personality as an analyst that he had toward the media when he was on the other side. I could not have had more fun and had more engaging dinners and conversation with somebody than those that I had with Tony Baroni when I would cover usually the number 3 game in the Big 12. And the stories that he would tell about Texas A&M were fantastic, for one. And they were a little unbelievable, if they hadn't been coming from somebody with such, direct knowledge of them and oftentimes sort of first person. But the rivalry between Texas A&M and Texas often had some, pretty amusing pranks that would cause, absolute panic and chaos on those campuses. For example, when a Texas student stole Reveille, the Texas A&M collie, which, caused, an absolute panic on the Aggie campus and amongst the core. There's a student who is assigned to take care of the dog 24/7. Like, the dog sleeps on the bed, the corpsman sleeps on the floor.
The dog goes to class.
All of this. It's a big honor, right?
Get this. If the dog barks in class, the professor is required to let the entire class go early. That's the craziest story about that collie. But
yeah, But I remember him telling me a story about how, like, the weekend that Texas A&M and Texas were playing in football, like, the Aggie corpsman who had charge of the dog took the dog home with them, happened to live next door to a Texas student, and they let the dog out. Well, they let the dog out, and the Texas student kidnapped him, and it was, just a total horror on the in College Station. And they got the dog back, but
for Jimbo money, probably.
At least they didn't terminate the dog. I was going to, come up with something far worse, but that's kind of a harmless prank to a certain extent. Had they not gone, fatal attraction with the dog or something.
Well, Bill,
apparently they've done that with the longhorn. This is bad. This is bad. This is really messed up. To do whoever did whatever they did, that's messed up.
Well, so Bill, Connor was asking me during the break where you can find live Blue Jays. I assume you don't want to go there.
Oh no!
I plead the fifth.
Look, hey, my first concert was Ozzy Osbourne back in the 1980s, and that was shortly after the
bat incident,
Dove and the bat incidents. So we were just waiting for that to happen at the Omaha Civic Auditorium. It didn't, though.
Just imagine Connor and Press Row with live Blue Jays. Going
I'll
Ozzy
just walk
Osbourne on
in
it.
with a cage of them.
Connor's going to be in press row with a live blue jay, just petting it, going, pretty bird, pretty bird, pretty bird.
Nebraska's going to bring out Jobu or something like that.
Right,
with
and
a live chicken.
And someone's rum. Let's get to Creighton, Nebraska.
That is so messed up.
In a moment,
to do what they did.
We'll get to hoops, but I want to get your take on Tony White, and should he buy his defensive staff Oris/Rolexes from Rick Heyman?
Well, with the contract of the raise to $160,000 a year, I think that he ought to do something. It's awesome that Nebraska bumped him up because that's a lot of money, right? $160,000. Is that what they're paying him now?
1.6 million. Do your Dr. Evil million.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing when you think that coordinators are making more than Tom Osborne made at the end of his career 25 years ago. Look, Nebraska, in every aspect of what they do with their football program, it's all in. The building that they're finishing going to be the finest building 5 years ahead of anything else that anybody else can build, right? When that's all said and done, Nebraska's going to be ahead of the game there. Nebraska was ahead of the game way back when they put big screens in, all of the various departments that they put in that others have followed with strength and conditioning and life skills and sports psychology, diet, nutrition, buildings. And now they're in on, pushing all their chips in on coordinators, just the way everybody else is. The last 24 hours, it's been Nebraska and USC. I'd be surprised if he'd gone to USC. And I think if, those dollars in California, I don't say that lightly. $2 million as the defensive coordinator at USC, that money's not going as far as $1.6 million in Lincoln, Nebraska. And I think for him, it's a better financial and economic decision to stay in Lincoln, to continue to develop your reputation, and set yourself up for next year. I equate this to Jeff Lebby going from Oklahoma to Mississippi State this year, as opposed to last year. His name was bandied about for jobs like the ones that are open now: Nevada, James Madison, San Diego State. But you stuck around another year. Oklahoma improved dramatically from year one under Brent Venables to year two. You had Dylan Gabriel as a quarterback, and it's paid off. He doesn't have the premier job in the SEC, but he's got a damn good job in the SEC. And I think if Tony White, really looks seriously at jobs next year or in 2 years when his 3-year deal is up at $1.6 million, he set himself up for a job that's better than Indiana. That just got filled the other day. I think Tony White's in line for something that is really, really special down the road. So good on him and good on Nebraska to be all in with your chips.
Bill, a thought as we shift to portal and the quarterback names keep kind of growing this portal section, and plenty of time. I mean, there's signing day in December. There's bowl games to play. There's U-Hauls to pack. Then there's also spring football, which is another run on guys leaving and looking for greener grass. Nebraska's position is going to be open-minded, fair to say, with quarterback?
I think so. I think Matt Rule laid it out pretty well, and he sang the second verse of the song that Ryan Day, was harmonizing in Columbus, 2 years ago, and he said, hey, lamenting that it costs $2 million to get a quarterback these days. Can you believe how bad that is? Which means we have $2 million to pay for a quarterback. Mm-hmm. And I think Matt Rule, grabbed that same songbook and said, hey, if you want to have a quarterback, it's going to cost you $1 million to $1.5 million or more to bring somebody in here. Are you prepared to do that? I do think, though, that what he is saying is, look, I'm going to give Chubba Purdy and Heinrich Harburg every opportunity to improve over the next few months and prove that they should have the job. We're bringing in a guy that we believe is going to be a great quarterback of the future. We're in on somebody in 2025. Oh, my gosh, 2025 that we're very high on, and so is everybody else. And maybe there will be somebody who says, I've got 2 or 3 years left and I want to go back to Nebraska. All that is possible. I don't think it's healthy for Nebraska to get into these one-and-done mercenary hire, for a guy who's going to come in here for 1 year. I agree with Matt Rule. I don't think that is healthy. I don't think the Sam Hartman from Wake Forest, who invested 4 years in developing, and then Notre Dame, sends him off after a tearful 3 months in in South Bend. It's a little bit like O'Shawn Mathis. Nebraska played that game. Nice player and all. And however much O'Shawn Mathis got for being here, was it worth it? So I do hope Nebraska is showing a little commitment to who they have and saying, look, we are going to be on the market and we are going to look, but we're not going to break our bank on one and dones. We're going to put our money in coordinators, okay? And that's what we're going to do. So good on Matt Rule to spell that out. I think people have an idea and an understanding of the game that he's going to play over the next few months. And if they land a good one, who will be here for a couple of years, good on them. But, the guy from Oregon, Ungalele going from Clemson to Oregon State, now shopping himself around again. That just, that leaves a bad taste, I think.
Bill, last thought here on football before we get your quick thoughts on Nebraska-Creighton. If Nebraska does not get a Porter quarterback this offseason, how big of a disaster would that be in your mind?
I don't think it's necessarily a disaster because I think if you're going to develop, you want to be a developmental program. Chubba Purdy was a 4-star. All you people who put your money in stars, he was a 4-star guy. So there must be some talent that they saw all those years ago. Otherwise, once again, recruiting is just kind of a crapshoot, and it depends on who you want to listen to. But if they're going to develop a guy, they're going to show confidence in him. Why doesn't Purdy, put the work in, get better, and he's the guy, or Harburg's the guy? Although I don't think that's going to be the case. And maybe Kalen comes in and wows them. Who knows? But I think you give the guys who are here an opportunity. But I think they do have to get somebody. Okay, I will agree with that. But don't go get the one and done mercenary. I don't think that does anybody any good.
Bill, thought on Sunday, your prediction for said game, and will we have seen an atmosphere like this at PBA since when?
Well, to quote Mr. T in Rocky 3, prediction, pain.
Thank you for the vote of confidence.
Look, I think Nebraska's, off to a great start. They've done everything they're supposed to do, 7-0. I think they've got confidence. I think that they have to be very, very pleased with the players that they brought in. Becca Alec's brother, I think he's a key to the game on Saturday. He and Williams. I know people are very excited about Mast, and they should be. What a weapon he's become. Tominaga is 62% from the floor since coming back, and 16 points per game over the last 4. So I think Nebraska's, relative term, stars are playing pretty well right now. Gary's been great since he's come back. But I think it's going to be, some guys that are going to do some blue-collar work against the Blue Jays that'll make a difference. I like what I think Alec brings to the floor in basketball, what his sister brings to the floor in volleyball. It's personality, and I think that I'm looking forward to that. And keep this in mind, too. Nebraska's shooting free throws better now than I think I've seen him in 25 years. Mm-hmm. And they're shooting they're making 9 more a game, I think, than their opponents. So I think that's significant what Nebraska's doing at the line.
Bill, last thought here, about 60 seconds. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, Bill Doleman, Connor Clark are starting a basketball team. Draft a 5th player that would lead us to an intramural title.
Well, I could go across the hall right over there where Amon Green is hanging out, and I'm not sure he's any good at basketball. But damn it, we'd have somebody in the marquee that might get us a little attention. I'm not sure if he can dribble very well, but he can sure carry the rock all right.
Yeah, well, ask him and all.
I was going to go like Patrick Ewing, but that works too.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, he's close. He's over there with his esports group. It's a little bit like King of Queens. You ever see that show where they had Lou Ferrigno living next door?
Right.
It's like, I got Amon Green's my next door neighbor. It's just kind of weird. Yeah, but he's over there with his esports team. So I'll go ask him if he wants to play basketball. He might not be very good, but damn, it'd be fun to have him on the team.
Bill Doleman. Hey, dude, are you any good at hoops?
We might kick ass at NBA 2K or whatever those gamers play.
I'm pretty good.
Bill Doleman, at Bill Doleman on Twitter, Pride of Fairbury, NBC Sports, the professor. Bill, we'll see you on Sunday, man. Thanks for the time.
All right, boys. Go Big Red.
All right, good stuff from Bill Doleman. Jacob Padilla, going to check in on Nebraska-Creighton on the way.
And now,
back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back into it. It's Hail Varsity Radio. Jacob Padilla with us. Talks some Nebraska-Creighton at Jacob Padilla _ He's on the scene tonight with Hale Varsity and Hurrdat Sports for Husker volleyball and, of course, high school basketball. Jacob knows more than anybody when we talk high school hoops. Jacob, busy weekend for you. How's it going?
Yeah, it's I'm just getting ready to get started here on the way down to the Devaney Center to start the weekend with some NCAA tournament volleyball. Probably hit up some high school basketball tomorrow. Obviously, we've got Nebraska-Creighton on Sunday, so a lot going on this weekend and excited to be there for all of it.
Well, let's get into Nebraska-Creighton, and what's your gut tell you? What do you feel about this ball game?
It's interesting. I think back when Nebraska first hired Fred Hoiberg, kind of the thought was, this series, the interstate series, might have a chance to be pretty fun. Both playing up-tempo, spread it out, a lot of threes, like that type of basketball. And obviously that has not been the case for the first 4 years of Fred Hoiberg's tenure, where he's just been kind of struggling to find a foothold and just having to adjust to whatever works for the team that he had at the time, as opposed to just kind of be able to play traditional Fred Hoiberg style. Well, you look at these teams right now, and I think you look at KenPom, Creighton is 19th in adjusted offensive efficiency. Nebraska is 22nd. So we might actually have a chance to have a fun, up-tempo, high-scoring affair in this game, which is definitely a departure from what we saw in this game a year ago.
Jacob Padilla with us here on Hale Varsity Radio. And Jacob, when you look at last year's game, that felt like kind of a proof of concept game for Fred Hoiberg. After years of struggling, getting the right team, the right system together at Nebraska, he gets that win against Creighton. I think a lot of Husker fans exhaled and felt like, you know what, okay, maybe Fred can do it around here. What do you think the stakes are in this game this year? Could this be a defining potential win for Fred Hoiberg during his tenure at Nebraska if he can get it done on Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, last year, just kind of with the way it turned out, where the injuries forced him to kind of regroup midseason, completely change the style of the team and the way they were playing. While that Creighton game was meaningful for the fans last year, it ultimately didn't really matter in the long grand scheme of things, because Nebraska just couldn't quite get to the level where good wins mattered, and it didn't necessarily jumpstart anything because of everything they went through after that. So right now you're sitting there at 7-0, got a chance to put together some kind of postseason resume. This would be a big win for Nebraska. Creighton's obviously a top 15 team. They had the rush showing down in Kansas City against Colorado State, but bounced back and won, kind of controlled that thing throughout much of the game at Oklahoma State in the first road match. And now Nebraska gets to host Creighton in their own gym, and it'll be definitely the most raucous environment that Creighton's played in terms of opposing fans, because Oklahoma State arena was pretty empty last night, and we know Nebraska sold out. So I think this is kind of a chance to put a big win on the resume as you look ahead, whereas last year was more just kind of a one-off, like, yes, it's a great win for the fans and for Fred Hoiberg and for Sam Griso in particular. It was meaningful in itself, but for the full season, it didn't really catapult Nebraska on to anything else. This would be Nebraska's first big win of the season. Right now, you look at Duquesne as really the only good team that Nebraska has faced that you can say. Every other win was just them taking care of business against a team that's not as good as them. Duquesne was the first top 100 team they beat. So Creighton is quite a step up from Duquesne. And so now this is kind of a prove-it game. Like, yes, Nebraska is here to stay, or was it kind of a result of how the schedule fell so far this season, the improvement that we've seen so far?
Jacob Padilla is with us on Hale Varsity Radio. And Jacob, who's your pick for Nebraska offensively to really have a good game against this Creighton team? Because I feel like you could go a couple of different directions, and I'm interested to hear your opinion.
Yeah, I'm kind of struggling with that a little bit, just because the matchups are really intriguing. The playing styles are really intriguing. In Nebraska has been so balanced so far. Like, you look at them on the season, you've got four guys averaging 14 to 16 points a And it really has been, all right, this guy's having a big day, so we're going to feed him. Oh, this guy's got a good matchup, so we're going here. Oh, Rink's got a cooking inside, so we'll play through him. Like, it has been a team that has really been able to ride the hot hand this year. There isn't one guy that you're looking at, okay, that's the guy that we're playing for night in, night out. So I'm having a tough time. Like, it really could be any of those guys. The front court matchups are really interesting in terms of, all right, how is Nebraska going to attack Creighton's drop? And in turn, how does Creighton choose to match up with their bigs, where you've got Alec and Mass as both kind of guys that can punish you at the rim as well as step out and knock down shots. Mass is more likely to take the threes than Alec is at this point. So we'll see. Before, like, I think Mass could have a good day, like if he's doing it, if the threes are falling against the drop. But I think if he's got Kalkbrenner on him and the threes aren't falling, he's going to have a tough time scoring against him inside. I think it could be a K-State game, depending on how Nebraska, or rather how Creighton chooses to defend Nebraska's guards. I think Trey Alexander is Creighton's best perimeter defender. He's got long arms, good athlete, really competes on defense. Like, if you put him on K-State and try to just kind of put the length on him and have Stephen Ashworth guard Jamarcus Lawrence, that could be a tough one for K-State. And in turn, that could create an opening for Lawrence, who hasn't really got going yet. I think Bryce Williams will have a good game for Nebraska, and I think Fazer Sharman will have a good game for Creighton. Probably see those two kind of matching up, maybe cancel each other out somewhat. They're not similar style, but similar in terms of 6'7", kind of off-ball scoring wings that will initiate a little bit of offense, but they're even better on the weak side when the ball swings to them. So I think ultimately it could be kind of whoever Alexander isn't guarding has a chance to maybe get some shots off against the way that Creighton defense.
Jacob, let's flip it around. What does Saturday mean for Creighton?
Yeah, it's obviously revenge for last year. Jays weren't at their best. And in that game, like, Nebraska really did, we saw a handful of teams succeed, basically daring Creighton to shoot a bunch of threes. They were really collapsing the paint on Ryan Kalkbrenner, making his touches tough. They were cutting off the driving lanes, and Creighton took 40 threes, which is school record. And they just did not go in at nearly high enough rate to keep pace with Nebraska. We saw already that kind of work in the Colorado State game, not to the same degree, but we saw Creighton just not able to hit anything in that game. I don't know that strategy will work again. So Creighton, I think, kind of got their confidence back down at that Oklahoma State game. This is just kind of continuing to move forward. It's Nebraska will probably be Nebraska-Iowa, probably one of those two, second-best teams on Creighton's schedule to this point, with Colorado State being the first, as they've shown so far. So the chance for Creighton to kind of tread water to be what people expect them to be and to get revenge for last season.
Has Creighton been managing these expectations? I mean, how are they dealing this season off of last year's incredible run?
Yeah, I mean, they were fine up until that Colorado State game when everything just went wrong, and they didn't handle it well. And they admitted they didn't handle shots going in well. And that's really what the team has kind of been focusing on, the little things, shoring up communication on defense, trying to put a little bit more bite into what they are doing defensively, kind of fixing the little things that cost them in that Colorado State game that led to the thing snowballing when shots didn't fall. That's something that last year's team kind of learned throughout the season, learned how to win when things weren't going well. And that Colorado State game was really the first sign of adversity, because every other game this season, Creighton's been able to flip a switch, go on a big run, and just bury the opponent, including that Iowa game. So I think for the most part they've handled it all right, and that Colorado State game is kind of a wake-up call. It's like, yeah, everything's been somewhat easy to this point. There's still days that we're going to go go out and have to really earn it. And that would kind of lock them back into that, I think, in terms of their preparation and what they're doing on the practice court.
Jacob, last thought here before we get you out, a little under 90 seconds. Busy time of year for you with the end of volleyball season, the start of basketball season. We kicked off high school basketball season here locally in Lincoln last night, and I want to get your thoughts. A couple of teams, one or two that you're most excited to check out in the prep hoop scene this winter.
Wow, that's tough. Because, I mean, I think Class A is as open as it has been, where the top, like you look at that top five, preseason top five, like Bellevue West, Millard North, Creighton Prep, Gretna, and Westside in some order. I think any of those teams could emerge as the number one team. I don't think that the talent level is to where Bellevue West was a year ago, where they're 15 points better than anybody else they were going to play. And so I think that'll make for a much more intriguing season where you've got all those teams battling out. I think Kearney's going to be a really interesting team if you're looking for another team that can kind of get in the mix there from outside kind of the metro area. They've got a transfer in from Arizona, Jacob Weber, 6'5", sophomore that can really, really shoot the ball. And Ben Johnson is the guy that had a great season for them last year and has continued to get better. And they've got some size, they've got some guard play. So I think Kearney's a team that I'm interested to see what they look like and kind of how they come together and whether or not they can kind of crack into that top tier in Class A.
Jacob Padilla with us, Hail Varsity, Hurrdat Sports. Follow him all weekend long. Volleyball, Nebraska-Creighton, and, of course, high school basketball at Jacob Padilla _ Jacob, we'll see you soon. Thanks for the time.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Good stuff from Jacob. So, negotiation time. I am trying to talk Iowa Russ into Indy. He is saying, look, don't do that to me. Would you go to Indy tomorrow? Again, the choice is, are you cheering for Michigan, Iowa, or an asteroid? Our friends, Husker guys, have the Twitter poll going.
Well, I know our friend Crew from the stream went to Lucas Oil last year wearing his Iowa gear and was blacked out by halftime, so probably the right way to be.
Nice.
Crew got after it, did he?
You watched that first half, too. You didn't want to see anymore.
Kind.
You didn't want to remember any more of that game.
Blacked out. Other Tito's, do it now. Put it in the Ivy. All right, forecast is on the way. Friday forecast with Hail Varsity.
Hail Varsity Radio is live. Now, back to Schmitty.
Schmitty's a great guy, but he don't have a brain.
And Elijah.
You want me to speak? When I point at you, yeah.
On Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you on a Friday. It's Hail Varsity. We're powered by Cornhead Lager, Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, Connor Clark. And so Clausburn right now is trying to make his way to the Big Ten championship game. He has had problems with security. Again, him and airports and balloons are a bad combination. So we may or may not have Claus today. That doesn't mean you can't run to the sports book with our picks and do the opposite.
Oh, Fade and Hail Varsity Radio, a tried and true method.
Well, you've been all right.
Well, no, it's kind of been like our stake in a beer bet for a long time was whoever made the pick was going to be wrong. You just defer. You'd win the coin toss and you would defer.
Just give me the wind.
Give me the wind, and you would usually win. So that's usually whoever seems the most confident in their picks here this afternoon is most likely going to be the most incorrect.
We will do a bonus pick, and we're going to set the line at 2.5. Creighton for basketball, favored in Lincoln for Sunday. Like we'll get that shortly. Let's start off, though, with football. And we can imagine that the rematch will go Oregon's way. That's how I'm feeling. Oregon's playing the best football arguably in the country right now next to Michigan. Georgia's pretty good too. And the experts love Oregon, and it's not even up for discussion. The only question is that too rich for your blood? 9.5 the number for Oregon. Washington, Oregon tonight, ABC. I think 9.5 is too much. I don't think a touchdown is. I think Bo Nix wins the Heisman tonight. Washington has limped in their last 4 games. Good squad, tremendous coach, great quarterback. I like what Oregon's doing. Landing in that offense and defensive line are the difference. Give me Oregon 35, Washington 28, but it won't be that close. I think Washington gets some points when the game's out of reach to get the backdoor cover. Give me Oregon and lay the points that way. But Washington cover, Oregon win.
I am going to go opposite of you, Schmidt. I think this game is going to be close throughout. It was close the first time around. I know Washington's got a great home field advantage, and it's really, really tough to beat 18 twice, but I'm not going to doubt Michael Penix. He hasn't been his self of old, I guess, if you will, over the past couple of weeks. He's regressed back to that quarterback of last year just a little bit. I still think he's a fantastic player. I think the battle between him and Bo Nix will be exhilarating. You won't be able to take your eyes off it. I think Washington comes out on top in a thriller, 38-35, a high-scoring game tonight.
All right.
I think it's going to be a really, really good game as well. I'm going to go Oregon here. I just like the way that they've been playing a little bit better than Washington as of late. I think 9.5 is a pretty large spread for this game, if I'm being completely honest. I think Oregon ends up winning it, and I'll go a final of 35-31.
All right, let's move on and get to the Bevo Bowl. Oklahoma State minus 15, Texas.
Other way around, right? Is Texas the favorite?
Texas minus 15, yes. Yep. Sorry. Hit your brakes. Oklahoma State getting the 15. Too much Texas, man, and I don't think it's going to be close. Oklahoma State's had a good year. Texas is insanely talented, and I think they take the death of Bevo's relative very personally. And give me Texas 42. Give me Oklahoma State 21. Texas win and cover.
Yeah, we're due for at least one blowout in conference championship weekend. I think this is the one. Texas, too good. They still have an outside shot at the playoff. I think they're going to come in motivated. I think they really just wipe the floors with Oklahoma State. 31-13, Texas gets the win.
Got to need some style points, too. I mean, you're in that running for number 4. What do you say, Connor?
I agree. I think Texas is just too much here today. They're on the outside looking in, but have a chance to be on the inside looking out when it's all said and done. I'm going to go Texas 38, Oklahoma State 20.
On to the SEC title game. Our dear friend Garth Glissman in Atlanta. Ready to see this one up close and personal. Georgia, Bama. Bama had their prayers answered on fourth and Dodge Street, right? So Georgia's favored by 5. I'm going to go Bama outright. I might even get onto the old sports book tomorrow and go money line Bama. Minus 5, I'll take those points. I think Bama wins. Milrose playing great football. And it's going to be high scoring. I think this thing hits over the overs, over the 43 and a 44-point number. It's been hovering around. Bama, 35. Georgia, 31.
I also have Bama outright in a higher scoring contest. Bama's hit their stride late in the season. Georgia has never really impressed me. They got a little bit better as the year went on, but not as much improvement as Bama showed. I think this Bama team is good. I think they're going to take down Georgia in a season where Georgia, they haven't slipped up, but it feels like they've been ready to slip up multiple times this season. I think this is the time they finally slip up. Bama gets it done. I'm also taking the overs, 31-28, roll tide.
All right, Connor.
I disagree with both of you. I think every single time that Georgia has played a good team on paper, they've played their best football this year, and it's not close. So I think Georgia ends up winning, and I think they cover this spread as well. I'm going to go Georgia 35 and Alabama 28.
All right, on to Indy, Michigan, Iowa, minus 22. The Wolverines are favored. I think Iowa covers this. And Michigan may be due to have a turnover-prone game. Iowa's defense is no joke. But it's still going to be plenty of Michigan. 22 is just too many points. I think Michigan wins this thing 24-3. So just barely a cover. But if I can get Iowa in 22, I may think about that. But Michigan stays unbeaten.
Yeah, Iowa's defense is no joke, Schmidt. I'm with you there. But unfortunately, their offense is a massive joke. It's been a punchline a lot of the season. No different here. Michigan, they know they just need a win to get in. But I think Harbaugh is going to want to show something in this one. Kind of prove the doubters wrong. Give me Michigan 35, Iowa 3. A game that's not close all the way through.
Yeah, I agree. I think Michigan's going to handle this game pretty easily. It's no, diss on Iowa's defense. It's just Michigan's too good. I'm going to go the Wolverines 31 and the Hawkeyes 3
All of us picking Hawkeyes with 3 points.
I mean, it's logical.
We're being generous.
Well, and Iowa, bless their heart, right? They got shut out, right? 31-0, 31-3, something like that against Penn State.
Well, did you see the first half total for Iowa according to Vegas? A point and a half. Point and a hal's.
Wow.
So if Iowa scores in the first half, they overs have hit in the team total for the first half.
Florida State and Louisville. Florida State's going to have to lean on defense, their run game. I think Louisville, not a mature team. After 2 big wins, they did not follow up the following week, and they got upset. I like Louisville outright. I know Florida State's favored by 1.5, but give me the Cards and the Fighting Brahms 28-24 over Florida State outright for Louisville.
I think Florida State's due to get exposed. I don't think Louisville is good enough to be the team to do it, especially with just all the talent that Florida State has all over the field. But they have a hole at the quarterback position. I don't think it's exposed yet. I think it's exposed in the playoff. Give me Florida State 28-27 over Louisville. They do enough to win and get in, but I don't think they're going to go very far.
All right, more of the Friday forecast as we continue. Hail Varsity Radio. Don't forget the weekend edition tomorrow at 7:40-ish. 7:40-ish till 9-ish. Can stream that Hail Varsity YouTube channel. As we'll be back, we'll have thoughts on Nebraska-Creighton. We'll lay that number down as Hail Varsity rolls forward. Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, where you can get the podcast.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time, it's Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager. As I'm chewing on this return flight from Omaha on Sunday to be back in time for Nebraska-Creighton with Iowa Russ. He has points to use. So getting to Indy, we started the year in Indy. Mm-hmm. We'd end the year in Indy. But it wouldn't... We just kind of said, Iowa's going to get stomped.
Yeah.
But the whole, crew effect of just go get blackout hammered, hit St. Elmo's before you go.
And maybe a chance at seeing the biggest upset in college football championship game history.
Iowa is going to have a lot of rooting interest by the rest of the college football world, just because there's so much anti-Michigan going on. Still not enough for Nebraska, though.
Yeah, apparently not.
Nebraska fans. So let's get into Creighton and Nebraska tip-off, PBA, 3 o'clock.
We also need to get Connor's prediction for Florida State at Louisville as well.
We missed you? Okay, sorry, dude.
That's fine. We were going to a commercial break anyway. I think Louisville wins. Florida State's on their, third-string quarterback, maybe. And Jack Plummer and Jeff Brom bring the Boilermaker show to the ACC. So why not? Go Cards. I'm going to go Louisville 27-21.
Okay. Yeah, Florida State's offense has not been close. All right. I'll jump into the deep into the pool here.
We're doing 2.5.
2.5. Creighton favored 2.5. As much as I think Nebraska basketball will get to the NCAA tournament this year, I think they lose Sunday. I think there's too much Creighton. I think Creighton hits some big shots, and I worry about Nebraska's matchup with Rink versus Kalkbrenner. I think that's for sure, and maybe Nebraska just presses in this moment. Now, their confidence is good. They're scrappy. They're physical. Creighton's got a lot of want-to with this, a lot of payback on their mind. They've had their come to Jesus already against Colorado State. I think Nebraska can use this as food for a week from Sunday, and that is Sparty coming to town. I think too much Creighton, 72-68, a tight one, but the Jays find a way. Sorry.
I think if this game were to be played in Omaha, this game were to be played on a neutral floor, I'm taking Creighton. I think the Husker fans are the difference in this one, though. Keisei Tominaga plays his best basketball whenever the crowd is into it, whenever he gets fired up. I am forecasting a big day for Keisei on Sunday. I think he leads Nebraska to victory. We asked the question earlier, who can Nebraska turn to in the need a bucket? Right now it's going to be Keisei. I think that's the case on Sunday. I think Nebraska gets it done. Biggest win for Nebraska basketball since Creighton last year. Give me the Huskers 75, Creighton 70.
Look at you.
I think this is going to be a really, really good basketball game. It's going to be really entertaining. The atmosphere is going to be off the charts. Easily probably the best atmosphere I've ever been in for a college basketball game. This Nebraska team is good. I think it's better than last year's. It's confident. And for that reason, damn it, give me the Big Red for tomorrow. I think they win a really tight ball game. I think they have a chance, and maybe that's my heart telling me to say that rather than my brain. But I'm going to go Nebraska 79, Creighton 77.
Ooh.
A barn burner at PBA.
A lot of points. Nebraska's defense will be the difference Sunday if they get it handled. Scott says Nebraska 80, Creighton 72. More tomorrow, weekend edition, 7:40 a.m. Hail Varsity YouTube channel. Thank you, Elijah. Thank you, Connor. Thank you for listening. Talk to you manana with Hail Varsity Weekend.